we're going to cover something that should have been covered a long, long time ago. Because when you look out at the alternative health and wellness area, there is a diet for pretty much every single condition imaginable, whether it's thyroid, whether it's IBS, whether it's really anything, arthritis diet, the list goes on and on. But the idea that there are certain nutritional demands of sleep apnea, a lot of times people think that's crazy. All you should do is just a CPAP, right? But the truth is, when you have sleep apnea, you have different metabolic demands going on in your body that's driven by inflammation. You're going to have certain nutritional deficiencies, and that's because it is a unique metabolic disease state that needs to be addressed as well. So, we're going to talk about the foods that can help fill those gaps so you're not stuck thinking a CPAP and tubing and all that is your only hope. So, today we're going to go over these 8 superfoods, and to avoid being just a really annoying, mundane, just listing out 8 things, I'm going to tell you why they are also important, so you understand more of why to what you're doing. And then, of course, how to best get these nutrients into your diet instead of just throwing a list at you. And of course, this is for educational purposes only. We're going to cite some scientific literature. Always consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health regimens. And what we're going to talk about today is not a substitute for the standard of care and not meant to treat, diagnose, or anything else around any and all conditions. But what can really help you out is subscribing to this channel. So go ahead, click that button in case you missed it last time, or if it's your first time. Either way, super cool. So as we go through this, I'm going to present it as the problem it's fixing and then the food that fixes that problem. So number one is low nitric oxide, and this is a big deal for sleep apnea. In fact, some articles will say they are inseparable for 3 big reasons. Number one, this is what the article talks about, is when you don't have good breathing patterns, which you don't if you have sleep apnea, your body actually can't even properly bring the max amount of oxygen from the air into your body. So that's bad. Secondly, if you don't have enough nitric oxide, then your nasal breathing is really bad. And nasal breathing is important because if you can breathe through your nose at night, that actually allows you to breathe a lot slower so your airways stay open and everything's great. And then the third big thing is when nitric oxide is low, not only does it make the movement of air through your tubes, so to speak, your airways harder, it also makes the movement of blood through your blood tubes, your blood vessels, way harder. So, this is also why sleep apnea is linked to massive increases in heart disease because nitric oxide is not working, blood pressure goes up, bad things happen. So, to help beat this, get it, you should either be laughing at me, that was not worthy of laughing with me, or just leaving this channel altogether. Beets contain the precursors to nitric oxide, so when you eat them, then it will lead to more nitric oxide production in you. So you can go with beets, and I don't talk about many supplements throughout this video, but this is one if you just want to do beet juice, because you may not have the time to roast beets every single day. I get it. But how you would do this, you would just kind of roast them, cut them up. You can also roast them way ahead of time, like roast them all on Sunday, and then eat them throughout the week. That's usually the simplest way to do that. A good goal will be 3 times per week on the beets. So there you go. There is number one. And we're speed running here. We're just going right to the next one. Superfood 2, it is addressing the weak immune system and also low copper that you'll see in sleep apnea. So I talked about that in another video. But main thing with low copper is that when your metabolism is running awry because things are falling apart in your neurons, etc., and because of big swings in oxygen that affect iron, that also is going to affect its neighbor and best friend, copper, and copper will be functionally depleted in your body. As well as your immune system goes all haywire, because when you can't sleep well, your immune system goes downhill. So holy shiitake mushrooms, in terms of fixing this, I thought about saying that before this video, and it, pun intended, and awful pun. But shiitake mushrooms contain a lot of great compounds like glucans and also copper that can help fix both those problems in repleting copper and then also helping boost your immune system. And they also contain a healthy amount of vitamin D. I'm not sure the exact amount, but I do know, and this is kind of like a crazy, ultra cool hack you can do. I don't have the chart here, but you can look it up later. If you expose your mushrooms to UV light, like you put them into like a little mushroom cage so they don't walk away, or birds eat them, I forget which happens. But if you do that, put them outside when there's actual UV light. Again, check if there's vitamin D making light, UV index above 3. If that's the case, you can actually boost the vitamin D in your mushrooms by like tenfold. It's crazy. Now you know. And how you can do it, again, saute a lot easier. 3 times a week is what you're aiming for there. All right. You could supplement if you're into that. Again, the point of this video is not for you to buy 8 supplements. Superfood number 3 is all about the mucus buildup that can happen. Now, even if you don't feel you have a lot of phlegm in the morning or maybe you have a dry mouth, you actually still have a problem with mucus. Most people don't know this because when you have obstructive sleep apnea, you have a lot of bad things going on. So, sleep apnea will also precipitate or develop some level of reflux. Even if it's not full blown reflux, when you're having to breathe harder at night, it will actually pull up stomach acid into the lower esophagus, and that will cause like a domino effect of inflammation, even if it's just a little bit, all the way up into your airway, which will lead to more mucus production. And then on top of that is all these other problems, big swings in oxygen, then there's intermittent hypoxia, or also the sleep disturbances. This will also lead to more mucus production. We don't want that. Anything that makes breathing harder and less efficient means more snoring, more sleep apnea. Bad. Got it? Now, one way to reduce mucus dramatically is with sulfur-rich foods, and they work in a lot of different ways. So number one is enhancing glutathione production because that'll help reduce the inflammation. Number two is improving liver detox as well to help clear out some stuff. And then, as we mentioned, one of the biggest things is reducing mucus. 1 and 2 also reduce mucus, but it also, these sulfur-rich foods directly reduce mucus as well. And then number 4 is that they can also reduce histamine and inflammatory responses. Again, part of the mucus production story. So top sulfur-rich foods. I guess I'm kind of cheating here because this is like a superfood category. I was going to go with just Brussels sprouts, but if you hated Brussels sprouts for some reason, I don't know, you have other sulfur options here. Okay, all the Brussels sprouts out of all these, I don't know, mustard greens are pretty good, but the other ones, yeah, I know my preferences. And this is once a day. Doesn't need to be crazy. Okay, and again, it's something you can make out ahead of time or go for some of the, well, can any of these are raw? I guess bok choy raw. Yeah, definitely saute. All these are kind of really gross raw. So sorry, gotta cook. But you can always cook things out ahead of time. Number 4, superfood problem, or I guess super problem fixed by a superfood, is carbohydrate dependent metabolism. That means your body relies on carbohydrates too much. So when you have sleep apnea, you go into this metabolic state. Here's the paper if you want to learn more, and here's the complicated diagram from this paper. And what we want to highlight here is how this shows all the different metabolic pathways, and the bigger circles means there's more pileups of these pathways. In obstructive sleep apnea, like you see this huge difference here, there's way more pyruvate piling up than someone without sleep apnea. That means a metabolic state in which carbohydrate metabolism is the main thing is getting out of control. It's too reliant on it, which is bad because we want to be able to use other fuel sources, especially fatty fuels, because they're more abundant. Now, here's a tricky thing though. I know we're going to talk about sweet potatoes, and you may be thinking, wait, you told me it was carbohydrate dependent. Shouldn't I cut out carbs and, tell my metabolism to pick itself up by the bootstraps? No, you shouldn't. You want to provide carbohydrates that are lower glycemic index because then you can give your body some carbs so it can use the pathway it's over relying on. But then that allows you to access other pathways a bit without going on this roller coaster up and down of strict glucose metabolism. So that's why sweet potatoes make it on the list here, not only because they're low glycemic and allow you to, yes, still use carbohydrate metabolism without shutting off fat burning and protein burning pathways, but also they're going to be way better and more nutritious than, say, just a standard good old white potato, at least in vitamin A. All right, and there's a reason I included this one. You can do this with your roasted beets 3 times a week. And something you should also do 3 times a week is subscribe. Well, I guess you can only subscribe once, but you can watch my videos 3 times a week. I do post 3 times a week, which is fun and exciting. If you want to make sure you don't miss a single one of those, make sure you click subscribe so you stay up to date. All you got to do is click the button underneath this video. And of course, when you subscribe, it tells YouTube, hey, this ain't half bad. And then it shows these videos to give more people more ways to get better breathing, less snoring, better sleep, and a better life. And of course, if you're on Roku, you got to press an assembly buttons like press up and then press right to find my face, and then you click on my face and click subscribe. Really intuitive. Just like superfood number 5, which is addressing the poor omega-3 and mineral status that we'll see in obstructive sleep apnea. So I won't belabor all this, but bottom line is that when your omega-3 is low in your body, that is not only going to lead to more diseases when you have sleep apnea, like heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, but also lower omega-3 equals worsening severity. So not something we want. Additionally, obstructive sleep apnea will lead to low minerals. We talked about copper earlier, which, technically not a mineral, it's a trace metal. But magnesium will also be lower and some other ones as well. Best way to do this, 2 birds, 1 stone, which I really doubt anyone has ever achieved that. You ever thought of that? Like how hard that would be to hit 1 bird with 1 stone, let alone 2? Anyway, shellfish contain a good source of omega-3 and come with a lot of good trace minerals, zinc being probably one of the most important ones, because if you're eating something with copper, and many of these foods cover copper, you want to have some amount of zinc to make sure you're not throwing off your balance here. So that's another one. 3 times a week would be ideal. If you do it like 1 time a week, I'll still be very happy with you. Superfood number 6. This is all about poor nerve function and energy production. So neuropathy is also really common if you have obstructive sleep apnea. We already talked about this chart. You may be thinking, how are we back here again? But the point of this being is that when you're making a lot of pyruvate, so we zoom way in over here, okay, this is getting piled up in obstructive sleep apnea. And pyruvate needs to make its way into the TCA cycle. You see my cursor over here, making sure it's doing its thing. In order to do this, your body needs a lot of thiamine to make this happen. So you'll be low on thiamine because you're doing that too much. So that's why thiamine, as shown here, and I'm not suggesting that, I'm suggesting get it from food, specifically macadamia nuts are going to be a great source of not only thiamine, but manganese and also copper, which are also big problems in sleep apnea. So have a few of those per day will help out dramatically. Number 7 is fixing metabolic inflexibility. Fixing metabolic inflexibility. Say that 5 times fast. And this is a continuation of what we just discussed, right? Carbohydrate metabolism is reigning supreme. It gets us through in a pinch, but it has collateral damage. We want to find other ways for our cells to make energy that don't over rely on this pathway because it's causing more damage. So how you can do that, you have these MCFAs, I'll tell you about that in a moment, and they can pretty much directly go into your body's mitochondria, which takes fuel and turns it into energy. So the more we can do that and bypass all those biochemical steps, the better. So how we do that is with medium chain triglycerides. So MCFA stands for medium chain fatty acid. This would just be MCT, medium chain triglycerides. Same thing. And coconut is going to be the superfood here. I know it says like sheep and goat cheese, but my neighbor has some sheep and goat. And if you're watching this, Mike, now you know. All right. But these are going to be good sources of MCTs for you here. So whether it's from milk, even shredded coconut or coconut oil. I know this isn't coconut oil. Or even MCT oil that you can use on. Be very careful with that though. If you're not used to it, it can lead to diarrhea, which is not fun. I wouldn't advise that. So 1 to 2 servings of these coconut fats in your diet per day is what you can do. And if you're starting to get anxious of like how to include all these different foods and recipes, don't worry. At the end, I got a guide. Okay, I always have a guide because I'm trying to guide you through these things. Number 8, barely made the list, but then someone commented on talking about this food, so here we are. Number 8 addresses the chronic inflammation with sleep apnea. So we already talked about this, and a lot of what I talk about in providers education, whether it's foods, breathing, sleep hygiene, it will help with inflammation, and also having something that really reduces it further is very important. So this active ingredient, curcumin, will reduce inflammation in a lot of ways, whether it is shutting down the pro-inflammatory pathways here or turning on the anti-inflammatory pathways. So that's why having turmeric, which contains curcumin, is a very important part of a good anti-inflammatory diet. Now, that might be easier said than done if you don't already put a lot of turmeric on all your foods. So you have options. One, you can go for, and I'll put the recipe for this in the guide, but there's something called turmeric milk, which isn't really milk, but it's a way you can drink this instead of having to put it on your food because some people prefer that. Or, yeah, you can just put it on your food, and I'm pretty sure those are onions on the chicken. If it's linguine, I'm not going to tell you to eat linguine, but if it's onions, I'll give that a thumbs up because it has sulfur, like we talked about. And that's just something you go for once a day. So I know that was a lot. Want to be able to help give you a guide so you can easily navigate things and also make it actionable. Because one thing to know these things, it's another thing to know like the recipes and examples and just have like a good plan around that. So that's what I put in the guide for you. And if you want to be able to help with your sleep apnea, your breathing, your snoring, that's what the sleep apnea reset protocol workshop is all about, where it's walking you through a series of exercises to help individualize and customize your own breathing plan to help with your breathing and also strengthen the muscles in your airway to make sure that supports good, healthy breathing and sleep. So for either one of those, there should have been a button on screen for the sleep apnea reset. I always do that like after the fact. Maybe one day I'll catch on. But if you want the guide, you go to the description, which is pretty easy to find. Unless you're on your phone, then you gotta click the title of this video and then find the description box and click the link. Pretty easy. Same thing for the sleep apnea reset protocol workshop. It will also have an additional button below the description box. You can click that. And for either of these here, let me zoom out enough. Okay. This is harder than it looks, by the way. Having to manage both these things. You can go to ochnow.com/superfood to get the superfood guide. If you want the reset protocol workshop, go to ochnow.com/reset. Simple as that. And if you got your phone and you're into QR codes, just hit your camera app, boop, and scan either one of those and click the button. It'll take you away to where you want to go. And speaking of where you want to go, this YouTube channel, right? And another great idea, if you haven't already, is to subscribe to this channel because you'll stay up to date. And I mean, if the mediocre jokes, I think the jokes are like 30% of the reason people watch, perhaps 20. I think sometimes they're 80% of the reason people don't watch, but just here to have some fun and help you all out. So there you go. Click subscribe, go to either of these pages. Thanks for watching and have a good one.